But first up tonight, on May 16 this year, on this show, that's exactly 4 months ago, I said, quote, "Getting people back to a semblance of normality as quickly as possible must be the priority of governments as we face the economic consequences of COVID-19. I then went on to say, the overwhelming sense right now, as we continue to flatten the curve on numbers, is that people want to see governments get out of the way. That's why New South Wales is in a much better position to come out of this economic funk faster than Labor states like Victoria, Queensland and WA. Again, that's what I said. I also went on to say that, frankly, the response from Victoria, WA and Queensland to the fiscal challenge of this pandemic have been appalling. They've flattened the curve, but they're now flattening their economies. Now, that was 123 days ago. Nothing's much changed, has it? In fact, it's got worse in those Labor states as premiers getting polling sugar hits send their economies into oblivion. Now, the performance of the states and territories during this pandemic has, in general, been nothing short of astonishing. The true test of political leadership is the ability to represent all of your constituency. That's why it's important for the Morrison government to establish a specialist pandemic response unit, task force, call it what you like, and take much of the decision-making out of the hands of self-interested states and territories. Like war, a pandemic requires a national response. And there will be another pandemic. It might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, it might be 50 years, but it will happen again. Now, rest assured, the Commonwealth must do the heavy lifting next time in any pandemic situation. It can't be left to a disparate, desperate group of state and territory leaders to come up with the ad hoc, hodgepodge response that we've seen thus far. The inconsistencies being applied around the country is a damning indictment on our federation. It needs a strong, coordinated national approach to deliver up good, sound policy during times of crisis like a pandemic. It also requires decision makers with empathy for the regions. Now, the bush and country Australia has been treated appallingly by these city-centric pen pushers with overinflated egos and way too much responsibility. Let's take the medical advice scenario as an example. The Commonwealth has maintained throughout this crisis that state borders need not be closed, and the states, for obviously political purposes, are keeping them closed. The result? Well, you're seeing it now, economies that will take a generation to recover. Watch New South Wales emerge from this crisis, as I said, 123 days ago, much faster and in a much more agile way than any other jurisdiction. Watch people from Victoria and Queensland swamp New South Wales, knowing they're being led by politicians that understand the bigger picture. Now, I'm never one for growing a bureaucracy, but the PM needs to step up on this, set up a specialist team whose sole responsibility is to come up with a coordinated response to crises like these. We just can't go through this rubbish again.